This is StoryBeat, Storytellers on Storytelling, an exploration into how master storytellers and artists develop and build brilliant stories and works of art that people everywhere love and admire. So join us as we discover how talented creators of all kinds find success in the worlds of imagination and entertainment. Here now is your host, Steve Cuden.
Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. We're coming to you from the Center for Media Innovation on the campus of Point Park University in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a rating or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great StoryBeat episodes to you. Well, my guest today, Daniel Krell, is a professional actor whose home base is right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Recently named the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Performer of the Year for 2019, Dan is a familiar face on the stage and screen, including 30 productions at the Pittsburgh Public Theater, the most of any actor, 35-plus productions at the Pittsburgh CLO, City Theater, Quantum Theater, Front Porch Theatricals, and many more. He's played a variety of major roles in the region, as well as with theaters around the country. Some favorites include Torvald in A Doll's House Part 2, Dr. Dysart in Equus, Sir Andrew Aguecheek in Twelfth Night, Bruce in Fun Home, and Jacob Marley in some 15 performances at the Pittsburgh CLO's annual telling of A Christmas Carol. A veteran of many films and commercials and voiceovers, look for Dan playing Mr. McFeely opposite Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers in the film A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Dan also happens to be married to one of my favorite StoryBeat guests and one of my favorite people, the extraordinarily gifted Dana Griffith. So for all those reasons and many more, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome the tremendously talented Daniel Krell to StoryBeat today. Dan, welcome to the show.
Oh, shucks. Thank you very much.
It's great to have you here. So tell us a little bit about your history. Where did this all begin for you? When did you start to think in your life, hey, I might like to be a performer?
Well, it is a little embarrassing, but it is the truth. In high school, I had a crush on a girl, and she said, I'm auditioning for the play. You should too. And I thought, oh yes, I definitely should. I've always wanted to do that. Didn't know what it was, of course. So I did audition, and I got cast in the play, and she then ended up not even doing it. She wasn't able to do it or something. I couldn't remember. So
that you did.
So there I was in the play, something I didn't even want to do in the first place, and I did it, and just kind of thought, wow, this is something. This is unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life.
And there were other girls there, too.
Oh, there were lots of other girls. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true, yes, indeed.
It tends to attract people that look good, by the way.
and myself, too. So
and yourself.
It balances out.
Exactly. So from there, you had that spark. That's what happened.
Yeah. Once I started to do it, I guess even then I understood that there is a sort of craft to it. And something I could put my focus into. Up until then, I really had no direction that nothing decided that I wanted to do. It's not like since I was a kid I wanted to be an actor
but you
anything else.
You realized way back then that it actually required a certain skill set and a certain amount of effort, and it wasn't just a free-form thing.
Yes, indeed.
You had to work at it.
Yes, you had to work at it, but I enjoyed the work so much that I would be able to dive into it wholeheartedly and do the work, which is necessary, but I enjoyed the work so much that it made it fun.
So I like to say that once it's under your skin, it's the worst kind of drug imaginable. It just doesn't go away.
Oh.
Same for you, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're stuck with it. And that's what sometimes people will say as you're maybe not in the beginning making much money or having much success, as you're learning your way through,
right.
that in that beginning phase, people are saying, why are you doing this? Why don't you become an insurance broker or whatever? Yeah. And you can't.
Yeah, I say that to myself still. I say, why don't I do something else? And I can't, I guess.
And you say that because it's hard to do. It's your life is not. It's not simple. So you don't know where next year is going to be.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's the life path is so impossibly difficult. I can't even explain it. People always say, acting. Oh, I could be an actor. That's watch. I can cry, and then they somehow twinkle their nose and get tears in their eyes, and they think, okay, that's acting. Or even I can make up a story, or I can that, and they think that's. But we always say that. I mean, it's a common phrase that acting is the thing that you get to do. So that's not your job. Acting is not your job. That's your reward. That's what you get.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah. All of the other things, all of the other things that you have to deal with in order to get to do that scene, or that couple of moments in that scene. Even it's amazing what all you do just for that.
And did you go to school for it? Did you train?
Yeah. I went to Performing Arts High School, and then 4 years of undergrad at Point Park. And
you're a Point Park grad.
Oh,
I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, back in the day.
Back in the day, yes.
Yeah.
Before they were a nationally known theater school. Or were they pretty well known then?
Yeah, I mean,
they were starting to be well known.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because they're now seriously recognized. I know we have a little school up the road called Carnegie Mellon that tends to attract a lot of attention.
Right.
But Point Park has a huge number of people that have gone out into the world and been very successful.
Yeah, I think it would be the same. It's the same then. It's been a consistently pretty good. Well, I mean, every program and every theater company, anything has waxes and wanes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, but there was a time in the very beginning of Point Park's theater school when it was not known.
I would imagine if it's in the beginning.
Took a while.
Yeah, of course.
And of course, being here in Pittsburgh, it's a little more isolated than, say, if you were in New York or L.A. All right, so at what point after your training did you start to think to yourself, or was it during your training that you thought to yourself, you know what, I'm actually really good at this? When did you feel confident in yourself? Yesterday?
I'm sure that's going to happen at some point. I don't know. I mean, so then from my 4 years of undergrad, I went on to 3 years in grad school. Got my master's.
Here at Point Park as well?
No, University of North Carolina.
Okay.
It was what they call a PATP, Professional Actor Training Program. So you get trained on how to be a professional actor. There's no theater history. You don't write papers and theses, and
you act.
So they also was with a LORT Professional League of Repertory Theaters, a professional theater company. So you had your training during the day, and then you performed in this professional equity company at night. So that I knew that I wanted to go on and get more training after my 4 years of undergrad. So I went to 3 years of grad school,
right,
directly into there. So that helps give me some confidence that I've been told the information, and hopefully I retain some of it.
Well, the fact that you've continued to work on a reasonably regular basis for all these years is probably an indication that you have some kind of ability.
I guess so. I mean, but I do also think that for me, it's one of those cliches of it's not up for me to decide that. I just do what I love, and it's up to other people whether they like it or not.
I admire the fact that you live with humility, and that you are, well, truthfully, you're going into every single production not knowing what the outcome will be.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't guess it in advance.
They say you're only as good as your current project.
Sure.
Or, as I've heard, you're only as good as your next project.
Yes.
But I would even say you're only as good as the project that you haven't booked yet.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, so you're good enough to be in the one that you're in, and you're good enough to book the one that you have coming up. But the one that you don't have after that, the next one that you don't, you're only as good as that. So you have to just keep.
So if you came at it with arrogance, like this is mine, I'm going to take this role, everybody's going to get out of my way, you probably lose that in a heartbeat.
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, that's one of the frustrating, the thing that I was talking about. Acting is the thing that you get to do, and then you have to deal with a lot of stuff. And some of the stuff is a lot of injustice.
Sure.
And that goes both ways. I mean, I get things where I think, wow, this guy would have been really good in that, and I get the job, and it's for some reason that's beyond my control and his.
But those are the odd and wonderful and mysterious things about the business where you don't know why people get certain roles. I had the great good fortune a few years ago to interview Bryan Cranston on stage here in front of our students, and what he said was, because he had been a journeyman actor for years and years and years before he became well known. He'd done 25 years or so before anybody knew who he was. And one of the things he said is that in the beginning, he was really angry when he didn't book a role. And he'd say, that should be my role. And then he realized after a while, if he didn't get the role, it wasn't his to have.
Right.
And then when he got the role, it was his to have.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everybody has their way of looking at it that works for them, A lot of it for me is I actually never got in it to be well known. At no point.
You just love doing what you're doing.
I love doing what I'm doing. I've never, I moved to New York after grad school because when you finish grad school, you move to New York. It's almost like that's the rule.
Yes.
And I followed the rule, and I moved to New York, and I stayed there for a while, and I hated New York City, but I've always wanted to be an actor. I've always wanted to act. And I remember I spent a summer out in L.A. between semesters in grad school, and I didn't take a resume. I didn't do anything. I just waited tables to actually get away from theater for a little bit, take a breather, because I was in grad school, which was very intense. And I went out there and met some people, and one guy came out there, and he said, "I'm going to give it 5 years." And he said, he said, "I want to be an actor." He said, "I'm going to give it 5 years. And if I'm not a star in 5 years, then I just go back and do whatever I'm going to do." And I think, so you don't want to be an actor.
No, you want to be a star.
Yeah. You don't want to be an actor. It wouldn't matter if it was acting that you did become rich and famous. You want to be rich and famous.
Right.
So it has nothing to do with acting.
Right. Well, I think there are... as I've told you, I lived for a long time in Los Angeles, and there are those two distinct categories of people out there, and then there's variations on those themes.
There's gray area in between.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But huge numbers of people go to Los Angeles or New York to become famous, rich and famous.
Yes.
And they don't have any intention of doing the work to get there, and they aren't really interested in the work to get there. They're interested in being famous and rich.
Right. I enjoy the work, the process, the rehearsals.
I think that makes you a superior performer.
Once again,
there's that humility.
That's up to the beekeeper,
sure,
the bee holder.
Of course, because you're just doing what you do. You can't be the judge as well.
Right.
I think that's really true. But you can sit and watch other people work.
Yeah.
As an audience member and make a decision
and be judgy.
And be judgy. Sure. Yeah. I mean, and I assume you do. I'm assuming you sit back and go, "That was really good," and that wasn't so good.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, in both accounts. As a matter of fact, it's hard for me. I enjoy TV and movies that are not fictional, that are documentaries
based on reality,
based on or nature shows, travel shows, science shows, those kinds of things. Because I'm not watching an actor play a role. As soon as I start watching an actor play a role, I'm the actor watching the actor play a role. I'm watching. Oh, that's a good choice. That was a really nice choice. Or that was that he missed that. There was something better there. Or, who does this guy know? How did he get the audition? Like while the movie or the play or whatever's going on, I'm watching and I'm thinking, did they have where was the audition for it? Did they have to meet? Did they read? Did they? And I'm thinking all these things instead of watching the story.
You're actually seeing how all the threads are being made.
Yes.
Into the cloth.
Right.
As opposed to enjoying the cloth.
Right.
And that can become a problem, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's like people who have perfect pitch. I don't have perfect pitch, but they say if they go into a music audition and the piano is not exactly in tune, it drives them.
Sure.
They can't sing along because it's not exactly on pitch.
It's screwing them up.
Yeah. So I'm lucky I don't have perfect pitch, so I can.
But I've heard you sing, and you sing fairly well.
I'm not trained as I'm not a singer. I don't read music. I don't play an instrument. I'm not a musician. I came into, when I do musicals, I came into it through acting, because it's 3 disciplines: the music, dance, singing, dance, and acting.
Sure.
And I came into it through acting. But I can apparently sing well enough to get hired for it.
Well, sure. I saw you last year in Fun Home. You were terrific.
Oh, thank you. That's I just kind of act through the music, which is, I guess, what it's all about. But.
You're way better as a singer than Rex Harrison, and he had a pretty good career at it.
Yeah, right. Well, of course, if you're Rex Harrison, you can say, you know what, I'm just going to talk while you play in the background.
It's exactly what he would do. He would talk his way through it very charmingly, and that was enough for him. Yeah. So I guess it is what it is. All right, so you're mainly a stage actor, even though you do film work. Yeah. You're not really a film actor as what you're focused on.
It's not what I ever set out to do. I do it when it comes along, kind of thing. Yeah.
So in other words, because you're not in Los Angeles, that helps you be not a film actor.
Yes.
I think if you lived in LA, you would be forced to focus on that more.
Yes.
Because that's the nature of that beast out there.
Yeah, I just I kind of wonder, if somebody wants to be a sage actor, they move to LA. It just seems kind of counterintuitive to me.
All right, so you're reasonably in demand. When you're not doing a show, what do you do to keep yourself in shape and disciplined? What is your in-between gig way to live? How do you do it?
Well, I am fortunate enough to make my living as a full-time actor. I don't have a job, a day job, a survival job. I don't teach. I don't, So I have a business called my little acting career. But it takes constant process. Getting resumes, getting your headshots, photocopied from copies at Carson. You have to go pick them up on the South Side, and that's your daily chore. And there's always, and you're always, because of what I do is, some weeks of contract, that contract ends, and then I have to get the next one. So you always have to be ahead. You have to be months or a year or something ahead of schedule with, a theater company announces their season. You look at what's there, and you look at the number. You play the numbers game of, how many guys in it and how many age, and, all those things. And you read the plays, and you look at this, and some other company, somebody that you've never worked for, is asking for monologues, and you have to find an appropriate monologue. There's just constant work. It's just, so what I do in between, again, is all the things that I have to do so that I get to do the acting.
Sure. Is part of that physical? Are you a workout person?
I'm not a workout person. I like being outside, though. I do backpacking. I do a lot of backpacking.
Hiking?
Yeah, hiking. That kind of thing.
So you're not a gym rat like some actors
I am
are.
not. I know people are, and I bet you I probably should be. I bet you it would benefit my career, but then that's not who I am, I guess.
Well, you have to be what you have to be.
You have to. Yeah, that's, if they want a gym bunny, then they're going to hire a gym bunny. And
sure.
If they don't, then I'm over here,
Right.
Yeah.
And part of that, well, here's the thing, and I think the listeners should pay close attention to what Dan just said, which is that you treat your business as a business.
The business end of it, yeah.
As opposed to it's just an art and I'm an artist.
Right.
No. A lot of artists or people that are in the arts go into it and have no clue what to do with the business end of it.
Right.
And it is still a business because, assuming you want to make any money at it,
right.
If you want to make it an avocation, then you can just take a day job and do it at night somewhere.
Well, now there are some people I know that they only want to play the roles that they want to play, and they only want to play them at the theaters they want to play, or take the film gig that they want, which is totally fine if that's how you want to do it. They can survive that, sure. Well, yeah, but then there'll be a bank teller or something, They take a day job. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all.
It's just I went the opposite way, where I let all of that kind of fall out beneath me, and standing on the edge of the cliff, have decided I'm just going to be a full-time actor and jump and hope that something lands, there's some footing there where I land next time.
Well, we're back to the confidence thing. You have enough confidence in you and your abilities and what you do that you feel like you can do that.
Well, I don't know. Confidence or ignorance? I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to do what I do.
Look, I was freelance. I've been teaching for a few years, but this is the longest job I've ever had as being a teacher. I was a freelance writer in Los Angeles for 30 years. I understand the notion of being freelance and not knowing where the next job is, or knowing I've got 2 jobs ahead of me, but I don't know where the one after that is. Because almost none of the work that we do as writers in the business or as actors or as producers or directors and so on, almost none of those jobs are long-term. And even if they are what you would call long-term, it may only be if you're on a TV series for 5 years, it's going to end at some point. Right. So you have the understanding that your jobs will be short term, that you always have to be hunting the next one, and it's a bit of a race to make sure that you sort of stay fed.
It's a bit of a race, boy. That's an understatement.
Yeah.
It's a marathon length sprint.
Correct. Oh, that's a good way to say it.
It's just constant sprinting.
And the old military phrase, hurry up and wait, applies all the time.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have to constantly be paying attention to what's going on in the world.
Right.
Like you say, you have to know what the theaters are, what the seasons of the shows are going to be.
There's another cliche of, opportunity. Luck is being ready when opportunity knocks.
That's right.
Being ready to open the door when opportunity knocks.
Well, and Thomas Jefferson also said, "The harder I work, the luckier I get."
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, that's part of it, is being prepared. It favors the prepared mind. That's another one. Luck favors the prepared mind, which is what you're saying. You're good to go probably at any time. For instance, if I called you tomorrow and said, Dan, we're in production on a movie in Pittsburgh, an actor fell out, and I need you to come in tomorrow, and assuming you weren't booked somewhere else, you would be prepared to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a professional does.
Right, yeah. I mean, I don't have to say, well, I'll see if I can get off work that day.
Right, exactly.
I just that's a good thing. Now, people are always so, amazed or something that I can make my living only as an actor.
It's awesome.
But it is very awesome. But then there's the other side of that that means that I have to make my living only as an actor. Sure. Yeah. So it's a double-edged.
But you can look at it the other way too. That a salesman only makes their living by selling things. So you have to keep selling things. Right. You can't sit back. Right. So I think that's the career you've chosen. You work at it like it's a professional business, which is what it is. Some people don't think of the arts as being professional business. Right. That was my point earlier, is that sometimes people go, we have students at school here at Point Park that think that it's just an art form. They don't ever have to worry about the business.
I know a lot of people who early on think I can just be artistic. And just whatever that means to them, just being artistic.
Well, good luck.
Which means appreciating things and realizing thoughts and things, which is true. I mean, that's part of the acting, the joy, in my case, acting, the joy I get from it. But there's a lot of business.
All right. So how frequently does it happen where you're in one show and preparing for the next?
Every time. Yeah,
every time.
Yeah.
Okay, so
in some form or another.
All right, so I'm curious about how you come about this, the process of you're performing in one show. When this show ends, you're going to be either already in rehearsal on the next show or jumping into rehearsal on the next one. What do you do? How do you keep everything square and straight in your head? Is it easy to do? Is it hard to do? Do you have a technique or trick for it?
Because of every situation, it's one of the joys of being a freelance actor is you never know what's coming up next, which is a joy, but it's also the terror of it. You never know what's coming next. So, and that's because every situation is different. Every production is different. The demands of the role are different. The length of the contract is different. Everything is different. So it changes. It depends on what it is that I need to prepare, why and what it is that I'm doing at the time, because those two things will never line up the same. So there's no technique, there's nothing to do except you put as much focus on the thing that you're doing right now, and then with any time outside of that, you think about the next thing.
So part of the job that you do is to memorize things. You memorize lines and blocking and other things like that. He says, "Going yes, a lot
I
of
do,
it."
boy.
All right. So when you have, let's say, you've got a huge role in a show. Of course, there are no small parts. There are only small actors.
Well, no. There are no small parts, only small paychecks.
And there are lots of those.
Yeah, I heard that once, and I thought, I'm stealing that one.
All right, so you're in a show, and you've got a substantial role, and you've got a lot of things you got to keep in your head square, because you're going to perform it every night for a period of time. And along comes another large role that you have to start preparing for. Do you ever get confused? Is it pretty well compartmentalized?
I think pretty well, at least, I can only speak for myself, but pretty well compartmentalized, when you...
So you have no particular trick for keeping them straight?
Yeah, no, it's just if you have done your homework and you have prepared for the thing you are doing, then when you're doing that thing, you will do that thing. So you will not stray into something else because you have put your focus and energy into the thing that you're working on right then. So you have done all your prep, all your homework and everything, rehearsals and research and anything have you, and so you will be able to concentrate on that thing. Do
you a significant time after you've completed a role, do you still remember all the lines, or do they go away?
They stay for a little bit and then they go away,
fade away,
because you have to make room for the next thing.
Have you ever done a show and 3, 4, 5, 10 years later gone back and done that same show again?
I have, yeah.
Did it come back to you right away?
It's surprisingly not. I have thought that, like, I did this, for 8 weeks.
It should be easy.
It should be easy, and then you realize that that you can never step in the same river twice. That's
true. Different actors you're working with.
Yeah,
different staging.
And you're different. You're very different. At that.
And you've made room for the other lines all those years.
Right.
So they've kind of gone away. I'm always amazed. Sometimes you bump into clips on YouTube and so on of people like Peter O'Toole, these phenomenal major famous actors, and he'll be talking to somebody, he'll just start spouting out lines from Shakespeare, and it's like he'll go on and on for a while, and you go, how does he remember all that? Right. So somehow he's got that capacity.
There are certain things that'll stay with you, and sometimes I find that a decade later there's a line from a play, and it's not the line, like the crux of the plot, or it's just some random thing that just tweaked in your little brain, and it stays there.
Well, it doesn't happen often for me, but every once in a blue moon, somebody will come up to me and ask me about a show I've written, a TV show I've written, and they'll say, that line, blah, blah, blah. I have no idea what they're talking about. It. I wrote it. It happened in 30 seconds on a piece of paper, and off it went to somebody else, and I never thought about it again. Yeah. And they remember it because it had some meaning to them. Some
resonance, yeah.
I'm sure you have that occasionally, too, where somebody remembers something you did and comes up and tells you about it.
Well, I've had people say, I love that moment where you... And I say, no, don't tell me. If it's in a production that I'm still running, they'll say, I love that moment where you... And I stop, don't. Because then the next time I go to do it, it'll be like, oh, wait, here comes that moment that person was talking about. And that's what I'm thinking about, instead of the moment that I'm supposed to be doing while I'm in the performance. Right. Yeah.
Instead of being in the moment.
Instead of being in that moment.
It becomes canned.
That they said was so good.
Sure.
I would be out of it thinking about them talking about that moment.
Sure. So that's a good segue into being an actor on stage. This notion of being in the moment, which you're, in theory, every time you're doing the performance, you're doing it as if it's the first time you're going through it. You know all the lines, you know where you're going to move, you know what the other people are going to say, and yet the magic trick of it is that you make every attempt to make it look like this is the first time you've ever said these words. How's that work for you?
I don't know. Tell me.
I imagine you don't really know.
No, I don't. That's the thing. It's not a science. Yeah, there's no formula. You can't just say.
Do you? Before you go on, do you think to yourself, everything's gone, and now I'm just going to go out and be pure? Do you have any of those processes?
Yes, it's called rehearsal.
Rehearsal.
It's called preparation. I can't stress that enough. That it's not about what you do the 30 seconds before you walk out on stage,
Right.
or before they yell action. It's not about it's about the prep that you've done when you got the script 6 months ago and you started working on it, you started thinking about it, about deep into it, into things that are not concrete, about the thoughts and the themes and the emotional content and all these things. You've explored all of that, and just the logistics of time frames and relationships, literal relationships with people, like she's my great aunt. What does that mean? So all of those things are so much more important than just the 3 seconds before you walk out. Because if you've done all your work, when you walk out, you are in that world that you have been working on, and you know what that world is.
And there's a comfort level in having that knowledge, because you don't want to go out and not know that world.
Right.
That would be a problem.
Yeah. And I also say that it's like it's really hard to describe. It's like an actor has to have, while they're in performance, 2 parallel lines of thought. One is the characters, and one is the actors. And as they go along, they can't intersect. And your job is to kind of keep them apart and yet keep track of both of them.
That's
so you have to think, this is the character and this is me, knowing that I have to pull the butter knife out of the drawer on this line, on this word, because the woman playing my mother says, "Oh, use the other butter knife." So I have to know, Dan has to know, that I have to get that on this particular word, But the character isn't thinking, I have to get this on the particular word. He's thinking about what he's thinking about while he's getting a butter knife out.
That's from the Tennessee Williams show, The Butter Knife.
The butter knife. Oh, it's such a good play. Nobody does it anymore. But it's really difficult to have those 2 lines of thought running parallel to each other without letting them intersect, but keeping track of both of them.
All right, so in a similar vein, but slightly different, you're in a show for, let's say you're in a show for 8 weeks. How do you keep things fresh?
Again, the preparation.
Just the preparation.
Yeah, well, so in this case, specific to what you're talking about, how do you keep it fresh?
How do you come on every night after 7 weeks of doing it?
Yeah.
And having it be new again?
A lot of it is the preparation. So if it means something to you emotionally, it will trigger something in you emotionally. When the mother says, "Use the other butter knife," of course I'm making all this up right now. It drives you crazy that she's going to nag you even about which butter knife to use. So if you find in you that kind of feeling of like, leave me alone, and it could be in any situation, but it's the same basic human feeling of leave me alone, then if you find it in you, then it triggers something in you that's honest. And so every time she says, "Use the other butter knife," it drives you crazy.
I think you just said a really good word that I don't hear people say very often, and that's the word honesty. The performance has to be honest. I don't hear that word equated with acting all that often, but that's what it is. It's not just in the moment and reacting the way that it happens as it's happening, but there's an honesty to it. And I think that you can see an actor who's not being honest. You can see it in a heartbeat. It's a little harder to see a lack of honesty in an actor who's in the moment.
Yes. Well, again, it's those 2 parallel things. It's honesty with the technique. You can have someone who's an honest actor, and you put them in a heightened scenario of either the speech is heightened, the situations are heightened, or it's a stylistic piece, and they can be as honest as they want. But if they don't understand how to adapt that to the piece and the situation, then you're going to be missing something even with that honesty. All
right, let's talk about how you get there in the first place. We've talked about auditioning a little tiny bit. Do you have any particular philosophies about auditioning? How do you approach auditioning?
There are several things. One, like so many things in our lives, just as regular people, you need to keep hearing.
What makes you think that any of us are regular?
If anyone's listening to you and I don't think they're regular people. Right?
Thank God.
Yeah, right. But we always need to hear things again and again. We need to be reminded. It's not like your mother says, say thank you once, and you need to remind yourself all the time to do certain things, to be a better person, and all these things. And I think with something like auditioning, there are certain things, and it's good to you cycle through them all the time, and you remind yourself. Like I just heard one recently that I've heard before, but I heard it recently, and so it kind of triggered again.
Back, sure.
It was like, oh yeah, that's right, keep that in mind. And the thing was, somebody said that auditions. They think of it as, this may be the last time I get to play this role.
Ooh.
So that's true. You go into an audition, and yes, you have this thing about you're trying to get the gig, and you're trying to work with in the parameters of what the directors and producers are looking for, but you're also doing it because you love to do it. So you think about, like, when I'm reading this script, I get to act. And I get to act this role that's right in front of me right now, and I may not get this gig, so this may be the last chance I have to have fun and explore this role and do my actorly thing that I enjoy. And that was just something I heard recently.
So I've heard, this is not the first time I've heard someone say that they approach auditioning as an opportunity to act, period.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That the audition
exactly
itself is an opportunity to act.
That's exactly it.
And whether the outcome of that is booking a gig or not is irrelevant.
Right.
I think that's a fantastic philosophy.
Really healthy. Now, again, it's easy to lose that.
Sure.
It's really easy to lose that.
Because you focus on, I need the money, I need the
the
gig,
money,
I need
and
whatever.
they're judging me over there.
Right.
They don't like what I'm doing, or maybe they like this. I should do more of this, and all of those things get in the way.
And there are probably times where it's, you really want to work with these people, and you feel a little more attachment to that particular experience. So if you can dismiss it and just be better off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting and good philosophy to have. Look, you've appeared in any number of comedies and dramas and various things. Yes?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yep. You've been fortunate to have a range to your.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of have done.
You're not the comedy guy. You're not the drama guy.
Right. I'm not just a Shakespearean actor.
Right.
I do Shakespeare.
Right.
But,
Do you? If I said to you right now, Dan, you're only going to be able to do one thing for the rest of your career, would you have a preference?
No.
No.
And that's not a. No, I love it all. But but I
folks, that was acting.
I'll be here all the week. I think it's why I do the variety that I do is because I love the variety that I do. Mm-hmm. There are people that are much better at comedy than I am, much better in Shakespeare than I am. There are singers who can sing so much better than me, and who can be edgier and more contemporary, and but my thing is I love to be in that show and this comedy and that contemporary and that period piece and that stylized piece and all of it. So if I would choose one thing, it would be the variety.
And as I say, you've been fortunate. You've done a lot of various things. You're not stuck in one.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to think that I've done like Gilbert and Sullivan. As a training for as an actor, I didn't study musical theater. I never planned on doing musical theater. But
did you do musical theater when you were in school?
I did so we did Working, which is Studs Terkel based on Studs Terkel, and it's you couldn't get more actorly. I mean, it is a musical written for people who play characters and can sing. So
sure.
It's not
it's not a singer's show.
It's not a singer's show.
It's really not.
Yeah.
Some shows are very much singer shows.
Right. Yes.
That's
very
not
much.
one of them.
No, not at all.
That's really more for characters.
That's for characters. Right. So I did musicals. Now in grad school there were no musicals. It was all Shakespeare and Chekhov and Sam Shepard and Ibsen and that.
Right. All right. So obviously, as you prepare a role, you go through whatever your preparations are, whatever your study is on the text, and how you look at how it's going to how you're going to memorize lines, how you're going to approach the thought on the role. Do you approach comedy and drama differently, or are they the same thing?
I actually cracked myself up. I've come up with this for comedy. You invest in the truth of the character first and foremost. You invest in the truth of the character. You find out what the character's needs are, and you pursue them relentlessly and from the heart and with truth and etc. And then once you do that, you go back and find out where you make the funny faces. It's like, so there you have to have it. You do approach them the same way. With the truth and the honesty and etc. And then you can kind of tweak it a little bit if necessary, or if not, then don't. But
I think it's very difficult to play the comedy.
Yes,
you have to play the character.
No, you have to play. What is that? There's an old story. I can't even remember who it was. They're on stage. Well, of course, all these stories, they're all famous old British actors, right? Of course. Why else? What else would they be? And there was somebody the man asked for a cup of tea, and he got a huge stop the show laugh for whatever the setup was. Who knows, right? So the thing is, he asked for a cup of tea, and the huge bring down the house laughter, and it stopped happening after a while. And he turned to this scene partner actress and said, "What is it?" I would say, may I please have a cup of tea? And they would just roar with laughter, and now they don't anymore. And she said, "Well, you used to ask for a cup of tea, now you ask for a laugh."
Oh,
so
that's
there
great.
is, so you have to play, the scene.
You got to be the character.
Yeah, you got to stay that in there.
Now, unless you're a famous comic actor. So I imagine, I didn't see it, but I would have loved to have seen when Steve Martin and Robin Williams were in Waiting for Godot.
Yeah.
And they played it for comedy. They played the comedy.
Right.
I mean, Godot is a vaudeville show, but they were probably playing for the laughs. They were probably heading for the laughs because they know that shtick for themselves.
Right.
But most actors cannot do that. They've got to play the character, not for the comedy.
Yeah.
So does that differ from your prep for drama, or is it the same thing?
Well, there are, as I think we sort of touched on a little bit, there are well, we talked about celebrities and actors, but there are also two different camps, and there are actors and there are performers, and that's not, the performers is not a slight. That's right. That's a skill set. An actor, I think I tend to be more of an actor. I like to get the script in advance. I like to look it over. I like to work with the director and talk about things, rehearse, have a tech rehearsal, go out and do the thing that we've rehearsed, and you say your lines and I say mine. And I'm pretty square that way, But some performers are like, they look over the thing, they're like, all right, move out of the way. Here comes. And they just go out and they do it. Which is stunning. I mean, the skill set is,
in fact, they're worse if they do over-rehearse.
Yes, right, yeah, right. So it works differently, I would imagine, for different people. How to approach it. I mean, they are consummate performers.
Right, but for you, drama. I think what I'm hearing is you're going to approach a role as a role.
Right.
And if it happens to be in a comedy, you're still going to approach the role as a role.
Right.
If it's a drama, you're still going to approach the role as a role.
Yeah.
And there's no special difference in the way that you approach the technique of acting that role.
Yeah. I mean, you are aware that it's a comedy, and that this is meant to be funny, but what you do is you say that the human folly is what's funny, I guess.
Sure.
So you have the character who asks for this cup of tea instead of whatever that setup is, that instead of saying, "Oh my God, the house is on fire," he says, "May I have a cup of tea?" So you have to play him asking for a cup of tea instead of but you have to. I mean, you realize that it's written to be funny, But
so we have to cover for a moment working with celebrities, because you have recently worked with a big one.
Yeah, right,
Mr.
right.
Hanks.
Tom Hanks. That's
Tom
like,
Hanks.
I was like, wait,
Who?
Tom something.
Yes,
Yeah.
Tom, Mr. Hanks. All right, so you played Mr. McFeely, who's an iconic character from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Now, David Newell, who has been Mr. McFeely for 50 years, has been a guest on this show, and David I think of as a friend. He's a great guy. Did you get together with David and talk to him about it? Did you just study the heck out of the show, or what did you do?
Studied the heck out of the show, and also we played phone tag several times. We actually talked on the phone and tried to get together. So we did talk on the phone a little bit, but really it was more to set up a time to like get together, and he canceled and I canceled, and we moved this around. We changed it to then, and we never actually got to sit down together.
So what did you do? Did you watch the show a lot?
Yeah, watched the show a lot, but also I kind of did a lot of my memory of it, watching it as a kid,
Right.
actually watching the show.
Right.
And so a lot of the physical mannerisms and etc. I got from watching the
Just
tapes.
knowing it.
Watching I got those from the physical mannerisms and etc. I got from actually watching tape, But the essence of it, the heart of it, or the something, I actually pulled that more from my memory of what that show was. So the deeper aspects of it, the heart, the joy, etc.
All right, so now you get cast in this part, and you're going to be playing with one of the great superstars of our day, Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
And do you then come to that in any different way than you would with any other actor?
Ignorance is bliss, and I'm pretty blissful. I think a lot of it is, as I said before, I tend to watch documentaries and travel shows, and, not like only things that educate me. Travel shows, and
Right, sure.
that thing, but rather than movies. So I hadn't seen a lot of his movies.
Seriously.
For as many as he's done, But
Right.
and also I have worked with a couple of people who are whatever that. And you realize that like they're
just people.
Just they the pants one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It's but then also knowing that I was going to work with this guy Tom Hanks
And playing a very famous character named Mr. Rogers.
Yes, right. In the first part, like knowing that you're going to work with Tom Hanks and not somebody who has a reputation as the opposite of Tom Hanks.
Sure, he has the most pristine reputation of anybody.
And well-deserved. I can't
the
tell
nicest
you,
guy, yeah?
the nicest guy in the world. It was so great. That's what I want to be. That I came away from this experience. That's what I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be that guy, not that rich, famous actor. Look, I'll take the rich part.
Sure.
I'll leave the famous part behind. Yes, but just to he was so great. Just
All right, so I could ask you this about all the actors you've ever worked with, but I'll ask you about him in particular. Did you take anything away from him and what he did, aside from being the good human that he is? In terms of being an actor, did he do anything that you went, wow, he's doing that? I'm going to steal how he does that.
Well, not as far as acting technique, except for the things that we already kind of know with the difference between stage and film.
Right.
You have the thought in film. That's, you have the thought, and the camera and the microphone picks up the things. With stage, you have the thought, and then you have to get it out to the last row.
You have to exaggerate it a little bit.
So it's theatrical. So there's different techniques in there. To watch him and how he just had the thought, and he was talking to you, who is this just 4 feet away from him, and on stage, when somebody's 4 feet away from you, the people that are so many yards away from you have to be able to hear you. So I watched that and just how he did that, but that's nothing new. But the thing that I did take away from it was Marley, the director, would give him direction, and you would see him take that direction, listen to what she said, process it, shake his head yes, understand what she means, and do the best that he could to incorporate that into the performance.
Fascinating.
And if he wanted to, he could turn around and say, "Nah,
Yeah, well,
No.
sure.
No,
And lots of actors do.
Mhm,
Lots of famous stars do.
Yes.
Anyway, they're going to do it the way they're going to do
They're
it.
going to do it the way they do it.
And by the way, that gets amplified hugely on a television series where the actor is playing that part over and over and over again for years, and then a new director comes on, and the actor knows better than the director.
Right,
But in this case, she's done all her prep, I assume, on Mr. Rogers.
Oh, yeah.
And the one thing I've seen numerous clips of him talking about doing the role, and that the thing that she kept saying to him is go slower.
Yes.
Because he's a pretty fast talker.
Yeah. He's a quick wit and quick. He likes to move the conversation along just because he likes to to converse and connect. But yeah, that was a big thing.
So you have learned over time, which I think is a huge thing for actors who go between TV and film, and is that you have already alluded to it, that there is a difference in the way that you deliver the performance, because on film it's a lot less outward, and that for theater it must be more outward in order to reach the last row.
Yes.
And did you, when you did more theater before you ever got to film, did you have trouble in the beginning with camera? Did you have to learn those techniques?
Well, it's yeah. I guess as long as you realize what the difference is, then it's okay to do it, and it's kind of fun and kind of interesting to be able to let go of that theatricality and just have the thought and just play the truth. I find film and television a little tedious in its process.
So that's that's a very good question, which is when you're on a television set or movie set, you're going to wait and wait and wait, and then you have a few minutes to perform, and then you go off and you wait and wait and wait. Do you have to really rethink the way that you go that marathon, where you have to suddenly rethink the way that you operate?
Yeah. Do you mean as opposed to in theater? Or
in theater, where you might be working on you're working on the show from beginning to end, and you're working and working and working and working. It doesn't stop really unless you're off stage for any period.
Yeah.
But on a movie, you might shoot for 15 minutes, then they'll break and go to a whole other setup, and that may take 4 hours. Right?
Yeah.
So there's a psychological downtime that you have to overcome, but yet stay in that energy level.
Yeah.
Is there anything you do for that?
Well, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but preparation. So that when you hear the word action and you turn and you look at Tom Hanks, you are McFeely and he is Mr. Rogers. So if you've done all that work ahead of time, then you are able to jump into it again, over and over again.
Do you have any particular tricks for preserving your energy?
No, not tricks. No, just preserve your energy.
Just preserve your energy.
Yeah, I mean, just, take it easy. And, stay loose, though. You don't want to, everyone is different, of course. I mean, that's the big thing.
Well, that's something we're talking to you about you.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, I guess I just, I have easy peasy conversation, so I don't stiffen up or, kind of get sleepy, or something. I converse, but I'm not bouncing all over the place and jumping around, hugging people, and
Right.
Yeah.
Well, some actors are known for going off to their trailer or wherever to a corner and not talking to anybody. And there are other actors who are more effusive and more outgoing, and it just depends upon your particular way of approaching things.
That's exactly right.
And yours sounds like you just like to keep it nice and light.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I will not run to my trailer, but I will, I would find a corner and not
keep your thoughts to yourself somewhat.
Yes. Yeah.
As opposed to being a big
right, but not be like, don't talk to me, I am in character. There's no, don't interfere with my preparation.
Well, you imagine that someone like a Robin Williams, bless his soul, that someone like him on a set, he was probably bouncing around the whole time. He probably never stopped.
Right.
He was just a Roman candle that was lit all the time.
That's him. Yeah. That's
right.
His...
And then there are people like you hear about Daniel Day-Lewis, and he's never not the character at any time on or off set. Right. And people were talking about Lincoln, where they never talked to anyone but Mr. Lincoln until the movie was finished shooting, when they wrapped. Yeah. So I find all that very interesting. I don't know if you find that interesting at all. I do.
I do. I find it interesting, but it's again, it's it can be that vastly different for different people.
Do you have any? We're coming toward the end of our session here, but do you have any particular differences in the way that you first approached working with directors that you now do differently? How do you work with directors? What is it you want from a director? How are you? How do you like to approach a director, or how do you want them to approach you?
It's like most things for me. I guess it's about balance, and that includes me, and that includes the director. The balance between myself coming in with ideas, but not being rigid in those ideas. So not coming in blank slate, like I haven't thought about this at all, and I don't know anything, and I have no idea what.
You have some
here.
ideas about how you want to play the part.
Yeah, exactly. And the director, and especially the director, I guess, because they have to have big picture in mind. I have to take care of my scenes and my dialogue and my, et cetera, but they have to take care of the whole big picture, So they really have to kind of come in with ideas, obviously. So, but then the best directors, I think, are the ones that are able to talk to their actors, and it's a collaborative art form / business. It's collaborative.
No question.
Yeah. So you have to be able to work with the director, and you have to be able to work with directors, and directors have to be able to work with actors. So.
And have you worked with directors, no names, have you worked with directors who were not good at directing actors?
Yes.
And what do you do? What do you do for self-preservation?
As best you can, yeah. Well, I mean, I've had, the extremes. I've had directors who know how high your pinky finger should sit when you make this gesture on this syllable of this word.
God.
I mean, really, And then other ones that are like, just kind of, here's the script, and kind of just go ahead and let's see what happens, and you're kind of lost, without any help because no matter what you're doing, it's observed differently from outside eyes, from the audience, So what you want is the director to be that audience watching what you're doing. To see what comes through.
I'm going to jump to a conclusion that you're not a fan of line readings. You don't want a director to read lines for you.
No.
But have you ever been in a case where you just couldn't figure it out together and they finally gave you the reading they wanted?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because you see some actors. It's kind of funny where they're like, they are struggling with it. They don't get this. They don't understand why. And,
sure.
And they're, and so then they'll say with a laugh, could you give me a line reading, with a laugh, and then sometimes they do, and they're like, oh, I see, but then others, that never, you can.
Again, this is a guess on my part because you and I have never actually worked together. I'm going to guess that when you come in, it's not a ton of direction for you. You know what you're doing. Mostly it's blocking. You need to know where they want you to go and how you pick up whatever and hand off whatever and all that blocking. But then I'm going to guess that you're not overly directed, that you probably come in and have it down fairly well most of the time.
Well, I have ideas, plural, I think, not my idea. I have ideas and thoughts about it. And I love working with a director. I love a director who you stand there and you talk about what's going on in the scene, and they throw out ideas to you, and you bounce them back with your take on them, and you go back and forth, and you're in agreement, and you collaborate and make it the best it can be, as opposed to here's my idea, and then now here's my idea, and what do you do from the it's
and let's butt heads.
Yes, exactly. or something less, that it's not even combative, but where it's just.
So the ideal is, I think what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the ideal is where it's a true collaboration, a true partnership.
Yes.
And that you're both taking each other's and plussing that.
Yes, yeah. And you'll work with the best directors who know how to talk to their actors, who know how to get what they want out of the actor, which is also what the actor wants. So you both want what is best for the production.
And ideally, a director should be the person with the overall vision, who sees the whole thing.
I am agreeing with that, yeah.
So that it can't be Dan comes in with a vision of what the show should be, which differs from the director's opinion, or vision, and that suddenly Dan pushes his vision on the director.
Right. And unfortunately, bad actors, you get that. You get bad actors who come in and they say, "This is how I do it. This is my character. I'm playing this role," but they're not thinking about the big picture of the piece itself, the overarching.
You've had this incredible experience where you've done numerous iterations of A Christmas Carol with different actors playing Scrooge.
Yeah.
Because they keep bringing in different stars or celebrities or great actors to play it. I assume that you've had to adjust somewhat for every one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but also I got to adjust. I mean, rather than just not adjusting and having it be the same, and this is how I say my line, and I don't care how you say your line, then that's, again, that collaboration with this new Scrooge that comes in, and I'm playing Jacob Marley opposite. You get to talk to a new, fresh bunch of ideas from that new actor who's not done it before.
You find that helpful?
I love it. I love it.
I had the great good fortune to have Patrick Page sit right in that chair.
Oh wow, goodness.
Patrick was just fantastic, and his wife Paige was on the show prior to that, and she sat in on that same session. So I had her on twice.
Nice.
And so that was a lot of fun. And I enjoyed, because I saw him do that. So I've seen you several times do it, and I thought he was a lot of fun doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So you've been in this business for some time now. In all of your experiences, can you share with us a story that's funny, quirky, offbeat, weird, or just plain hilarious? Something.
Just plain hilarious.
There are those.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's funny. It's, I guess, the things that are the most recent, are the ones that carry so much weight in their funniness to me. But it was just in December doing Christmas Carol, as actors do in December.
Yes.
Not unusual. And I played Jacob Marley, and spoiler alert, I fly in the thing. And
Imagine.
they put me in a harness.
Do you talk like this?
And yeah, boy, it's lots of fun, let me tell you. And so I'm wearing the harness, and then they hook me up to a cable, and I fly out. But the harness, the strap going across the front around the upper belly, I guess it was a little loose or something. It wasn't quite tight enough. Now this has nothing. It wasn't unsafe at all. But so it usually rides above the belt line of the pants that I'm wearing as Marley's ghost.
Right.
But it was loose, so it slid down in underneath in the pants on the belt line. And so then I sit down to talk to Scrooge in one part of the scene, and as I sit down, the snaps all in front of my pants, all four of them went. And they're snaps, not buttons, because I have to do a fast change out of it.
Right.
So they can't be like really good solid. It has to be something that can be undone very quickly. So it's never been a problem before, but with this,
these are the snaps that look like buttons.
Yes, exactly. They look like buttons, but they're actually rigged as snaps. But with that big harness piece falling down it snapped these buttons. So I had to do the rest of the scene with my legs spread and my knees bent and squatted down, and I every now and then, I'm trying to. And Marley in this scene is warning Scrooge to change his ways, or he'll end up like Marley, a ghost in chains and doomed to wander throughout eternity, and all of these horrible things. It's this kind of supposed to be dramatic,
perfectly Dickensian.
Yeah, right. Yes, and here I am walking around trying to pull up my pants for the whole rest of the scene. And I have these ghost gloves on, they covered my hands in them, and they're little snaps, and I kept trying to every now and then gesture with one hand and snap but I couldn't even pull the pants together because the harness was inside them, and I spent the rest of the scene walking around squatted with my legs open.
Did anybody laugh?
On stage, yeah. I mean, not on stage, but
the other actors got it.
Yeah. But that's, I don't know, because there's so much going on, because it's this special effects with this ghost. I have these chains on and these long coats and the frayed edges and all of these and weird behaviors because he's a ghost. I don't know that anyone in the audience ever caught it, because I kept them up. They never went past my knees, so. But the joy,
Did anybody come up to you after and say that new way that you walk is fantastic?
You were really connected in that scene.
You've given us a whole new way of looking at Marley.
Yeah. Oh,
I think those are the things that people remember from their careers.
Oh, yeah.
Those offbeat, weird things that happen. That's why I asked the question.
Live theater, I say people see car races. They go watch them so they can watch the car wrecks. They're always hoping that a car wrecks.
Why do you think people go to hockey games? People get in fights.
Get the fights. So people go to live theater to look for somebody to mess up.
Well, it's the lions in the arena.
Yeah. Yeah.
People want to see this crazy stuff happen.
Right.
And of course, the Carol Burnett show between Conway and Harvey Korman.
Well, they did that. I mean, they milked all of that.
Well, of
stuff.
course they did. Yeah. They allowed that to happen.
It was great.
That was
great fun.
Really great, memorable stuff. All right, last question for you. Do you have, for someone who's either starting out in the business or maybe somebody who's in a little bit but trying to get to another level, do you have a good, solid piece of advice or a tip for them?
Well, they're not my original things, but they're things I've heard and things I've really kind of latched onto. There's two of them. And my favorite, we do some talkbacks with young people
after a show.
Yeah, after a show. Yeah, and or for some outreach or that community involvement or something, and they'll you get a lot of the kids and put up their hands and I want to be an actor. What should I do? And my favorite response, it wasn't mine, but that I heard was, learn everything you can. Which I thought was so smart, such a smart answer to that. Rather than move to New York, get an agent,
Right.
It was learn everything you can because it's true. It's absolutely true. You can use anything that you learn. History, geography, learn about religion, even if you're not religious. Learn about the history of it and learn climate and anything that you learn can be applied to acting.
That's so valuable because you as an actor may play any number of roles in which you require having that knowledge.
That's it. Yeah.
And same thing for a writer and director and producer to know everything that you can, not just about the craft of being in theater or film, but everything about everything.
Yes, and it's even in a more, learn the facts of geography, but then it's even bigger picture. You become more aware, just generally aware of the world around you, which then you can really apply that as well.
It certainly makes you a better informed person.
As person, see, that's another thing. A lot of actors, a lot of kids, if they're starting out, there's a good amount that actually that won't actually continue on with a full-fledged career as an actor.
It's challenging.
It's so challenging that a lot of, what that does is then you have this thing that you have learned to learn everything you can, that you can carry it into whatever you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that is extremely valuable advice. I think that's valuable advice for anybody, whether they're in the entertainment industry or not. But I think super important for people in the entertainment industry because a lot of people go into it with no other thought of doing anything.
Yes, right.
And this gives you an opportunity to explore the world.
Right.
So I thank you. Daniel, this has been a fantastic, we've been at it an hour and 8 minutes, believe it or not.
Nice.
And so I really thank you for coming into the studio today. It's been terrific.
Oh, thank you. It's great.
And so we've come to the end of today's Story Beat. If you like this podcast, please take a moment to give us a comment, rating, or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to. Your support helps us bring more great episodes to you. This podcast would not have been possible without the generous support of the Center for Media Innovation on the campus of Point Park University. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden, and may all your stories be unforgettable.